Welcome back to Whole Lotta Holtz, the podcast. We've got Rick Holtz here, and of course we've got our CEO, Becka Christian.
Hello.
This episode is titled Distribution of Responsibilities as the Business Has Grown.
That seems very technical. Becca, did you write that title?
I did not. Kaz wrote it. I'll call him
That was his
out.
last thing. He's like, I'm going to put a really convoluted
Man,
title into this.
that's a very...
I didn't expect Avery to read the title. I was going to change the title.
I like the title. I think it sounds very professional. Very, very nuanced. And I like this too because this is going to be bringing us back to the early days and kind of move forward starting from then. When you started out, Rick, it was you and your family in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
At what stage in the business did you realize you needed to hire people outside of your family?
When it got too much for us to handle as a family. That's when you know. It's like when you're down there running the machine or whatever. For we were running machines at that point. When you're running them beyond midnight and you're carrying into the 1 and 2 o'clock hour, and you're really starting to feel the weariness of it. But I would say if you're new to business, you really need to push as long as you can before hiring people. Get as much of your revenue as you can, because payroll is absolutely the biggest expense in any business, and it weighs heavily on you because you're taking that person on as a responsibility, and you're now providing their means for their income as well. So it's a heavy responsibility. So it's not something you should ever take lightly. And so I say, if you're small, hang out as long as you can and work as hard as you can to save as much as you can before you take that leap.
What was it like? Well, actually, before I get to that, what were some of the first positions you hired for? And I'm curious to kind of know not only just the positions, but what brought you to the point of realizing, okay, I need to bring in other people, and then thinking through like what position is actually going to help me and this business. Having to maybe put aside what you want to do, maybe. Yeah. And instead, what's best for the business as it grows. Yeah.
So at this point in our business, we were doing embroidery. We ran a company called Heritage Wedding. That was what we started with after we lost everything. And it was actually an idea that Colleen had found on Etsy, kind of a niche market. And it exploded really quickly as far as the bridal. It was a bridal robe business, and it was not something I wanted to do. No manly man wants to be down in the basement putting monograms on bridal robes, pink and floral bridal robes. But at that point, we were coming out of losing everything, and it was working. We were selling. We were primarily selling through Etsy at that point, and it was just growing rapidly. And so we got to a point where it was kind of like I'm burning the candle at both ends. I've got my kids working, Colleen's working, we're all working, and we're starting to feel the stress of it. And so we know that we've got to start to bring somebody on to give us some help. Of course, at this point, we're still in our home trying to keep our expenses low, and that is key for startup. I do not want to go rent a building. I don't want to go outside of the home. I want to save, because right now at this point in our life, I've got a lot of debt to pay back because we lost everything in the process. We had our cars repossessed. We short sold our house. I mean, we had multiple sheriffs serving us summons to go to court because we couldn't pay our credit cards when we were losing everything. We did not file bankruptcy, so I had to pay all that stuff back, and that required an enormous amount of money to get that stuff paid back and paid off. And so I did not want to take on people, and I did not want to move out of our basement as long as I could.
What was it like for you guys to hire people and then have them work in your basement? Was there, I'm sure...
Yeah, that was kind of weird. So we were fortunate that we were in a rental house at the time, which is kind of interesting because if you're from Huntsville, Alabama, you know the name Piper and Leaf. They're a nationwide tea brand now. They're everywhere. And Caleb, one of the owners of Piper and Leaf, is a good friend of mine. And they just celebrated their 10-year, by the way, which is super cool. We were out there celebrating with them this past week at an event they were doing. But they actually started their business in the very same rental house we did. And they ran Piper and Leaf in the basement of the house that we ended up renting. So they ended up moving out. We didn't know this at the time. And then we ended up renting the business and starting our business in that basement. And so what was kind of nice was the house had kind of living quarters upstairs. Like we could all live upstairs. And then the basement served as a great incubator for a business. Like you could have all your equipment down there. It had a walk-in entrance from the back of the basement, which was kind of nice. So if you had to hire people, they could have their own access into the home without disturbing your life too much. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Yeah. So Becka here is one of our, what I like to say, our OG employees.
Original gangster.
Been here for more than.
I was right after the basement, though. I didn't get to work in the
Yeah,
basement.
she did not work in the basement,
Nope.
but she was pretty early on.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like, and trying to remember back, what the need was at the time, how she kind of came in, whether it was an applicant or whatever, and how she got brought on.
So this was we had just moved out of the basement, which I really struggled with because I think at the time we had like 4, 5, 6 employees down in our basement working. I think 5 employees in our basement. We had a customer service, 4 people running machines, and so it was getting to be a lot. We were making postal runs throughout the day, and so we finally had to make the decision to actually leave the basement. And that was a really hard decision for me. And then once we found the cheapest space we could find. I mean, we were in the bottom level of this 2-story building, and then I remember we were getting to a point where I think we're at this point, we started adding machines, and so we were up to like 8 or 9 embroidery machines, and we were starting leather work as well. And we found Becka because we were really needing some help on the marketing side of things. So like a lot of our creatives and relinquishing some of that control of running the ads and just having somebody there, because we knew that marketing was the engine that drove our business. And I had done so much of it up to this point, and just really and I say it over and over in all of our marketing meetings. It's like, yes, production is vital to our business and the quality of our production. I was like, but the engine of our operation is marketing and how we push and propel our business forward. So you had to have the right person in that spot.
And you were wanting to launch Holtz Leather, too. Holtz hadn't even launched
Yeah,
yet.
it was funny. So Becka came to the interview, and we were talking about Holtz, and she was starting asking me questions about our brand, Holtz Leather. And Colleen and I just died laughing. I don't remember if it was Holtz Leather or Heritage Wedding she referred to as a brand. And I just died laughing. I was like, we're not a brand. It's like, we're just trying to make ends meet. It's like, that's all we're doing. But it's funny now to look back all those years ago. It's like, she had the right mindset. Her mindset was taking us from our infancy there and developing us into a brand. And she brought a lot of ideas into my mind that I hadn't thought about, like, brand colors and brand identity and all these things that I'm just like, I kind of laughed at because I'm like, we're not a brand. But now it's like, wow, she had a lot of forethought and foresight into knowing where we would go and be.
All right, so this is a little bit for Rick, but also for Becka, considering she's been running a lot more of the kind of day-to-day things for the business. How has the hiring process evolved? Holtz still maintains a very unique culture. What do you guys look at as far as prospective employees and to know if they're going to be a good fit or not?
Yeah. So early on, when we're in our basement, obviously you're bringing people into your home where we have our children and that type of thing. So we were very, very, very suspect of everybody, which is kind of funny because they were suspect of us too. Because I remember talking to some of the early employees. They were talking about carrying a knife because they drove down this driveway that was kind of gravel and it led back to this house, and they were like, this is scary. And we felt the same way on the other side. We're like, we're bringing these people into our house. We're petrified. And it's like, so it's like this fear, a healthy fear on both sides. But for us, it's really about the character of the person. Things that we value personally, like our family values family. Our family values hard work. Our family values integrity and honesty, and all these character traits are very important to us. So early on, that's very much how we hired, and we tried to find people that were like us. So we homeschool, so we immediately went after the homeschool community. Hire some of the kids that are just looking for some work, and then that developed to where we needed more like full-time people, and so then we had to go to like the job sites to get people, and that was a completely different process. But now stepping forward, And our hiring process is a little bit different than what it was early on. And I'll let Becca talk a little bit about some of that.
I think we've kind of we've tried at least to just formalize the process that you guys set. I mean, all those things, integrity, honor, hard work, like those things that they valued and those character traits that they valued, those are our core values now. And that's what we try to hire on. You know, when people come in for interviews, the question isn't just based on your resume or the skills that you have. You know, we try to ask about them personally and like, you know, what do you do outside of work? Who are, like, really get to know them, because you're bringing them into the organization and we're not in their basement anymore. So they can't be around all the time to instill that. So you need the right people to come together to form that team. So that's still really what we're looking for in the hiring process. It's just a little more formalized now. We have a handbook and we have all the core values and all of that, and we just try to hire around that.
As you guys have grown, have there been? I know there have been. But what are some of the challenges you guys have had in maintaining the culture that you initially kind of built? And you mentioned at first it was in our basement. The people we hired were in our home. And I'm sure that carried on to be like, we still want to be particular in who we hire and who we have represent this company. What have been some of the challenges you guys have had in maintaining it, and then also things you guys do to try and keep that alive in an ever-growing and changing business culture? I guess in society right now, 2023, it's tough to keep things as they were, I guess.
Sure. I'll let Becca go first.
I mean, I think we have had challenges. I think we've had high and low points with the culture over the years. I think it's easier when you're small in general. Like, certainly when you're in their basement and you can eat lunch, at their dining room table if they invite you up and stuff like that. It's a lot easier, and it's easier when you're smaller to get to know everybody that you work with on a really personal level. All their kids' names, all their stories about what's going on in their lives, and you get to connect a little bit more. And then as it gets bigger, it's and you put certain policies in place, because you have when you're so lax at the beginning. We started having when I first started, I remember you used to just get to work by 9 a.m. That's what they said. Just come to work by 9 a.m. And people would show up at what?
9:05. And it's like, listen, guys, 8 to 9 o'clock, and you get here at 9:05.
Yeah. I remember Star Wars premiere.
Oh my goodness!
Out.
Oh yeah, this was early on. Starting, we had I don't remember when this was, but like, all of our employees decided to go to the Star Wars premiere, and they stayed out till like 3 a.m. So nobody showed up to work the next morning, and it was awful. It's like, we got orders to get out the door, nobody's here.
So when as we hit challenges like that, which obviously that makes for a really fun culture, that's a really cool place to work. You work with your friends, and but as we were growing, it was like, we had volume of orders on the books and we had to get them out, and customers are calling asking where the orders are. And so I think you had to put policies in place. And so you go through these kind of like, oh no, that's not the way I'm used to it. And so it's like, you're changing who you are. And so I think that's been hard as we've like tried to juggle that of wanting to do business differently, wanting to care about every single person who comes on. We want to meet them where they are and try to help them if we can when they're going through struggling times. And but at the same time, we have a large amount of orders that have to go every day, and we have things that we have to accomplish within the time, and that so it's balancing, I think, when you can be flexible and when you have to put some policies in place.
And that's what Becca's really great at. I tend to be more of the emotional guy. I can I can get really hot really quick with people sometimes, and sometimes I have to reset myself. And I think dealing with people in general doesn't matter if it's at church or at home or whatever. There's always conflict. There's conflict in everybody's life. We all have conflict, and it's how to resolve that conflict in a way that is glorifying to God, number one, and number two, helps to either grow that person, or maybe that person needs to hear the hard things. And so I would say there's been lots of challenges, because we do develop and hire a group of people that tend to be a community, and so They make connections, and we're making connections with them, and so they're our friends as well. So like and as we've grown, and then you have those years, and these last 3 years honestly have been very hard in the business, and there have been lots of challenges with COVID, and post COVID, especially e-commerce has really changed. The whole dynamic of e-commerce has changed, and then all of a sudden it's like we got to lay people off. I mean, now we need to hire people. We got to lay people off. We need to hire people because it is so unstable right now in the economy. It's just doing this number right here, and it's like you're taking it when you can get it, and then when it's down, it's like, so you have this. We're trying to balance this thing, and that has been, I think, one of the most difficult struggles that we have been dealing with, because we're manufacturing, and manufacturing jobs are all based on the ability to continue to produce products that you're selling. And so if your sales dry up, you don't have products to produce anymore. So your workforce, and like I said, payroll is your largest outflow of your cash. And so you have to react quickly. I mean, you can sit on it a couple weeks, a month, but if it doesn't pick up, then you have to make hard decisions. And those hard decisions are very difficult. And Becka has done really well when we've had to have those hard discussions with our employees, and she does really good things to really try to set them up, writing recommendation letters. But those things, I think, have been one of the most difficult aspects of our type of work. Now, we're not a government company, we're not a government contractor, so we don't just deal with just a consistent inflow of government money. We flow based on sales, and specifically e-commerce is a big part of that. We're trying to diversify a little bit now, and that's a little bit of the board and log company as a form of diversification into our local market, and as is our 2 retail stores that we have in Huntsville and Madison. That's a diversification. We're trying to diversify to be more stable. And I will say this year, Becka has really done a great job of stabilizing our workforce through the year. We've really watched our numbers very closely, and we've really tried to navigate the year. And I feel like we've done a better job this year with it. Thank
you. Yeah, no, I mean, we're just learning as we go, really. Like, it's, we have had some ups and downs, and I think you learn as you go. And I mean, you have to make smart business decisions, or the whole thing will get away from you. So that's not healthy for the families that we employ either. And so it's incredibly hard. And I think, especially when you start out with a business that, like, we do really genuinely value the people that work for us. And so if you do have to lay off or something like that, man, it's hard. It tears us up. Hard. And like you said, the only thing I can do, because I can't afford to keep, that's not a smart business decision. I have to make a decision, and then I have to work and grow and try to change the direction to make up for that.
And then the next day, we're at the marketing department, and we're like, guys,
we've got to
fix this. We've got to get creative. We've got to figure this out, because we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to get back on our feet. And that's what we do. And we get to thinking and being creative and trying to find ways of engaging people into, how do we beat these new algorithm changes that Facebook and Google, and how do we handle the iOS 14 update that has just decimated e-commerce? How do you handle these things? And it's like, you got to pivot, but you got to know how to pivot, and then you got to test. And anyways, there's a lot of challenges, but you can't give up. And that's what, I mean, you can get down in the down, like, oh, we just laid off everybody, it's horrible, but you can't stop. You can't stop. Yeah. You've got to keep moving forward and figure out to get your footing back and keep moving. Yep. And so we've worked really hard on that, and I feel like we're really starting to stabilize now.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a dual question. I'm going to ask Becka first, and then Rick. What is your role in the business today? Are there responsibilities you're still hesitant to relinquish? And I'm referring to when you first started, or just your main kind of position. Like, I know Rick was a lot more involved in the day-to-day, and Becka started in marketing. Kind of contrasting where you were then versus where you are now. How has your role changed? And like I said, are there still responsibilities that you are either hesitant to relinquish based on just your own, what you want, and then maybe also whether
so
it's still needed?
This is a key to company growth, period. So company growth. So it doesn't matter who you are. And I know lots of guys that are that own their own businesses, and you can see the guys that kind of get stuck and kind of hinder their growth are people that are not willing to trust other people to step into roles to relinquish some control. And you have to relinquish control if you're going to grow, because you're one person, or in my sense, and it's Colleen and I, we're two people. We can only do so much before we have to have help if we're going to continue to grow. And we're not only growing our business, we're growing our family. Like our heart and our focus is not about making more money. Obviously, we have to make more money because we have more mouths to feed. Ours is really pouring out into adoption. Adoption is such a big part of who we are as a family. We, as a business, commit a substantial amount of our resources to a local adoption agency and a local agency that works with children. These are children that are coming out of foster care systems that need placement. And this is our heart, is for helping these children, and that means bringing children into our home. And this is very much who we are. And so, as you bring more children into your home, I don't know if you've seen grocery prices lately, but they are not cheap. And so I just want to say thank you right now for all of those that have bought a Holtz Leather product. You have fed our kids, and you have kept us moving. And I want to say thank you. I really do, because that means a lot to us. But back to the question, it's like, you've got to be able to relinquish control if you want to grow. And like, I want to grow because honestly, I'd like to adopt more kids. I'm not done. I mean, we have 11 kids. I want to adopt more. I want to do more with Lifeline. That's our company, or our not-for-profit that we're really heavily invested in, because they've invested in us. They helped us bring our children home, and they're a phenomenal agency, and we love being a part of them. And I want to do more for that. I want to give more. I want to be involved more. I want to see my kids adopt. I want to see others adopt. And we've come behind other families that are adopting and supported them. So in order to grow, you got to relinquish control. And that has to be done well. You can't just throw your hands up and step away, because you're going to lose your brand identity. You're going to lose control of manufacturing if they don't know how to handle manufacturing. So there is a process of changing hands, and this has been one of the challenges that we have experienced. Not only me, but Becka has too. As she's kind of stepped into my role, she's also seeing all the challenges that come with that. And sometimes, and honestly, it's like we need more positions in our company. Like, we probably need a little bit more management in our company, but honestly, we can't afford it. It's not in the payroll. Like, we're American manufacturing, not Chinese manufacturing. We can't just grab somebody off the street and put them to work. It's like, we are Americans, and we treat our people fairly, and we pay fairly. And so with that, it comes greater responsibility on our leaders. We have to carry more weight. There are things that are hard to relinquish control on. And for me right now, like, my role now is I'm more of the visionary. I'm going out creating kind of the content, not content direction, but yeah, in a sense, like what I want to do. Like, I've got an idea I'm brewing in my head right now that I'm trying to get all the marketing team rallied around, which we'll be talking about more very soon. But it's being the visionary. Like, what's next? Are we going to put another retail store? Where's that retail store going to go? And it's kind of like thinking that. So then, now Becka has moved into a role. Becka started out in our marketing department as really almost, she had a job, and then she came not fresh out of college, but had her first job out of school, and then
3 years in marketing,
and then came over to work with us, and she really helped grow our brand through marketing. And so I developed a trust. So I saw her ability and her analytical mind, and I was able to relinquish control of marketing, and she was able to take that. And then I've been able to work with her and train her in areas of like manufacturing and production systems, and she's watched failures and successes of this up and down, and we learned along the way things, what to do and what not to do. But it takes time to relinquish control.
Yeah, I think you got to learn as you go. I mean, when I moved into I was promoted to VP first, and that put me over operations, that put me over production, and I had a really good relationship with Rick from the marketing side, and we had at the time we had a team of directors that came together on every business decision. So I was in those meetings, and I heard about production, and I heard about CS, and I heard about all these things. But then being in that VP role, honestly, it was just, I would just call Rick all the time. Like, I'd be like, hey, they're saying this, is that right? Because you can't always just trust what you hear. You gotta like trust but verify, right? And so it really just was like learn as you go. And there's still things, I mean, I think there will always be things that you run into. You've never dealt with it before, so you don't really know how to respond to it. And you've just got to, you just learn as you go. So.
And asking questions is always key. And I think that's been nice too, because Becka, and that's how you learn. You ask questions. She'll call me up. Hey, what about this? Or what about this system or that system? And so we'll talk through it. And that's how you learn.
I think that's what I look forward to if you're talking about, like, you know, as I relinquish control now to people under me. I mean, that's a big deal. I think my grandfather told me when I was young, do the job that you want to have. And so, I mean, so I'm looking for, like, if you're building that trust factor, right? So you're looking for somebody who is taking on those things and can show you that they can do it. And as they show you they can do it, you give them more and more and more, and they start taking on those responsibilities. And that's huge.
What are some things you think you wouldn't have been able to accomplish without giving up some of that responsibility or that particular role, at least as far as in the company?
Oh yeah, growth. I mean, that's kind of what I just alluded to. It's like your growth is inhibited by your ability to relinquish some control. You have to start relinquishing control and trusting people to do the job, and then checking, always checks and balances. It's like now I'm more of a question asker. I get on the phone with somebody. I'm like, all right, so tell me why this, how much of this? And it's like you're just asking questions because I know the answers that I expect. And if they don't match up, then I can dig in a little deeper. But yeah, I think growth is a big thing for us. Is like I feel like we were able to adopt because I was able to relinquish control, and I was able to trust people to step into a role that helped us to grow. When we lost everything, we had wanted to adopt, but we didn't see how that would ever be possible because we were in such a deep hole. And through growth, we've been able to really change that and bring more children into our home.
Yeah, I mean, you're only one person. Like, you can't, in order for you to scale, you got to bring more trusted and skilled people on. So without that, we wouldn't be able to grow, and we wouldn't be able to keep growing if we didn't have the great people that we have.
For leadership positions, do you guys promote from within? Do you consider outside hires, outside candidates? Do you recommend one to the other? What are some of the pros and cons?
There's always pros and cons here, Avery. You know this full well. It's like you bring people on and you train them and you spend time and energy with them, and then they jump to the competitor across the way. I'm just kidding. I'm poking at Avery a little bit. I love Avery to death. He's a dear friend of mine and an incredible. I don't want to brag on him too much here because somebody out there is going to be sending him a letter. Hey, come work for us. You can't have him. He's ours. No, I'm kidding. It really is a great guy. But you know, we try to do both, and we've done both. Yeah, I think we've done both. I personally like to train from within and find the people that are capable, that have the gifting and the skills, and then pour into them. And you're pouring into them to make them better and to help you. But the end goal is that person. I want to see that person be successful. That is my heart. If you stay with us for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or you go out on your own and do your own business, man, I'm pumped for you. That's what I want. Your success is ultimately what I want. I want to see you take all the steps to get there. And it's just like parenting. It really is if you're doing it right. And it's like I'm training my children to become better citizens in our society, better workers. And sometimes that requires hearing hard things. Sometimes that requires being refocused and reset. Sometimes it requires just that word of encouragement. Man, you're doing good. That is an awesome whatever. Or that looks great. What a quality product. And that little bit of encouragement goes a long way to building them up into the role that you want them to become, or they want to become, really. And so finding the people that are wanting to grow and then pouring into those people to grow, I think is key to what we want. Now we've seen the opposite too, where we think somebody has the potential and you put them into a role and they don't get it. And what's really hard when you do that, when you bring somebody up from within that can't adapt to the job that you brought them up for, is like, how do you take them back down? It's like once you've really brought them up, if they're not able to handle that role and you've had those hard conversations of where they're missing it, either they have to see it and be like, I'm missing it, I'm good to go back down to this, or I'm going to figure this out. Give me some time, work with me. Yeah, we're merciful. We can do that. And we'll make a plan to make that happen. And Becca's, like, I say all this, but Becca's the one who makes the plan and helps everybody get on track.
You got to let people fail,
Yeah.
because that's where you learn the most is from failure. I've learned the most from my failures in the past. So I think if you're trying to grow from within, I would say, the con to growth from within is that sometimes you've got to give people time, because if you're promoting from within, you're promoting somebody who's never done that job before. And so you're going to have to let them fail a little bit. You're going to, in controlled failure, right? Like you can't afford certain failures, but you have to let them learn and develop and grow into that role. And I think there are so many pros to that, for your culture and for, this is somebody you trust. This is somebody who has already have a proven track record with you. And so in that sense, like, it can be really great thing to promote from within. Now, I'd say if you have like a quick need and you do not have the ability to let them fail at all, you're just, this has to be, then you would probably, and we've seen success, like our production manager currently bringing somebody from outside who has the skill sets that we were looking for in that role.
We've seen that fail too, and we've seen people come in from the outside. They don't know your business. They don't know your business model, and they don't know your product. And so, if they're not willing to catch on and learn and really put down, then they're not going to succeed. They're not going to succeed in the role. But then we've hired other people from the outside that have that ability to learn, and they're willing to learn. The willing attitude to learn, that's a winner's attitude. They will succeed anywhere they go. If they're willing to learn and they're willing to work hard to do it, they'll succeed. It's the one who's not willing that's just not going to make it.
Yeah, and I think if you're scared to promote from within too, because if you've got somebody who's willing to learn and you're scared to promote from within because they might fail and then you lose them, you'll lose them anyway. Because if you've got somebody who's willing to learn, like, they want to advance, they want to grow, give it to them, help them grow. Yeah.
Well, Holtz has seen some pretty incredible growth and has successfully navigated through some pretty difficult times.
Yeah, some people may not know this, though, because we talk about our infancy. I think people are often surprised at the size of Holtz, because people see us locally and they're like, oh, y'all have a cute little store. And it's like, well, we do most of our business e-commerce. Like, well, how many people work in the company? And it's like, well, at our peak, we're at about 70 people in the company. And they're like, do what? It's like, oh, y'all are legit. And it's like, I'm not saying that to toot our horn, but we've gone through the ebbs and flows of lots of people, little people. We've gone from basement startup to quite a bit of responsibility, and so we take that very seriously.
Yeah. On Google, I mean, we have a 4.6 customer satisfaction rating.
That's not, like, I saw that on the talking point notes. I'm like, that's not where I want to be. I want like 4.9 or 5. 4.6 is, I'm not satisfied with that, just so y'all know. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you've bought a Holtz product and you love Holtz, I'd really appreciate y'all going on there and giving us a 5-star, because often the people that, not everybody leaves reviews. I don't. I know when I have a good experience, I don't always get on and leave a review. Most of the time I don't, because I'm satisfied. I don't go on and leave. But I tell you, the times I do leave reviews are when I'm not satisfied. And so just remember that businesses that are small, and we're still considered a small business, that we depend upon those positive reviews. And negative reviews really affect small business. So before you leave those, really consider the implications that has for that small business. It's not always easy running a business, and you're balancing a lot. And so be merciful when you're thinking about from the business perspective. Don't just go somewhere, because it could have been an off day for somebody that day, that you call in and maybe the customer service person was a little snippy. Give them some mercy. Just realize that
our customer service is great.
Ours is great.
They really will never. They're not going to be snippy.
No, they're not. But I'm just talking for small business in general. Yeah. Listen, we're all trying to make it. Just be merciful. Cut us all some slack.
Well, I don't think I can really add much to that. I like how you left it there. I think just being merciful in general, just a great way to live your life, especially in business. Becka, Rick, thanks for being on.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for taking the time. If you guys have any questions, please contact customer care at holtzleather.com, and we might ask your question here on the show.
Is that the email we picked? that?
Or
It's
podcast.
There's been some
Podcast.
debate on what email we're using.
I'll tell you what. Definitively, you can look in the
This
description.
is a new podcast, and we have been like, well, let's send them all. We were having this discussion this morning in the marketing meeting. I was like, do they send it to customer care? Because it's kind of like a podcast question. I want it to be specific for podcast. So you can email either one if you want
we
to.
do have
We will put
podcast@holtzleather.com.
the exact correct or both emails
Yeah,
in
and
the
they'll-
description below. So
Listen, they're gonna make
when
sure
this
your
is when you're
question
listening
gets
to this,
We
it will
respond to
have-
both.
the decision will have been made by the time you're listening to it. So anyway, thank you
If there's
guys.
some topics y'all want to hear about, look, Avery's
Yeah.
trying to end this session. I'm not done yet. It's like I'm still talking. It's like, listen, if there's something you want to talk about or you're curious about, I love entrepreneurship. I love business. I love family business. If you have a question, shoot an email over to us. I'd love to incorporate it into the podcast. Thanks, and y'all have a good night or day.